Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. This week I want to discuss a revelation I had while I was making my last two videos. And that revelation is, after owning this Nissan R35 GT-R, I don't think I'm ever going to go back to owning another 90s JDM legend car. Now, for those of you that are new to the channel or don't know my history of cars, I've had a Mitsubishi Eclipse GSX, I've had a Honda S2000, I had a couple Mark IV Supra Turbo 6-speeds, an FD3 Rx7, and an R32 Nissan Skyline GT-R. Now, I do count myself as being very fortunate as having owned these cars over my life, especially when most of them I got while working in a restaurant. Now, for those of you who are thinking that's impossible, there's no way you can afford to get those cars while working in a restaurant, I did make a video explaining how I did it, and I'll leave a link to it in a banner above my head as well as in the description down below. But getting back to the video, before I start discussing why I don't think I'll ever own another 90s JDM legend car, I first want to talk about why I did own them. And I think it comes back to the same philosophy my father has. If you talk to my dad, he says that the 69 Camaro and the fastback Mustangs are the best cars on the road and always will be. And you have to think, why is that? Well, if you look at his time in high school, those were the it cars that probably some of the kids he went to high school even owned. For me, I went to high school in the late to mid 90s, and for us, we knew about the Supra and the RX-7s, and we knew what great cars they were. However, unlike a Lamborghini or a Ferrari, those cars seemed like they were at least obtainable. Of course, Fast and Furious comes out shortly thereafter, and of course, we all had to have those cars because that movie made them look absolutely awesome. So I do count myself as being very fortunate as owning those cars in my lifetime. However, I've kind of realized some things that kind of leads me down the idea that for me, they're not the best car anymore. The first reason why I think I'll probably never get back into owning another 90s JDM legend is really just their cost. They've exploded so much in value that I just can't justify the car for the price. For example, if you want a 240SX, you're looking at a bare minimum of $7,500, and that's for a clapped out one. If you want a decent Mark IV Supra Turbo 6-speed, you're looking $60,000 to over $100,000 easy. RX-7s, you're looking at high 20s to low 40s, and even Mazda Miatas are going for $3,500. To put things in perspective, when I bought my first Mark IV Supra back in 2007, I got it for about $24,000. I drove it for a few years and ended up selling it for about $33,000. Then in 2018, I found another Mark IV Supra I picked up for $33,000. Granted, it was a little rough, I had to clean it up, and I ended up selling it for about $60,000. Now, also when you take a look at my Miatas, I used to get Miatas because they were cheap and fun and you can put them on the track, and if you crash them, you didn't cry. I used to be able to get them for about $300 to $800, just kind of depending. So to me, the cost of these JDM cars right now have gotten to the point that for the price point, you can get a newer car that can outperform these JDM cars. And the cost of ownership doesn't stop just when you purchase the car. You're gonna have to spend money to maintain the car just to keep it on the road. I mean, these cars aren't bad cars. In fact, they're great cars, but they are 25, 30 years old, and they're gonna start showing their age. For example, with my Mark IV Supra, all of the suspension bushings were pretty much shot and needed to be replaced. The valve stem seals on the engine needed to be done, and even my steering rack went bad. So it's not that they're bad engineered cars, they're just getting kind of old. To make things even more difficult, car companies are stopping production of the parts needed to replace your factory parts. By law, car manufacturers are only required to support their platforms for 25 years from when they cease to be in production. And now some of these cars are getting to that age, and so these parts are becoming harder and harder to find and get. That means that if you want to replace a part, you can't just drive into Toyota and get a new dash. You're gonna have to find somebody who has one that's willing to sell it to you. And they know they're out of production, and they're gonna charge you a premium. So it's gonna get expensive. And on top of that, since how we're talking about, maintenance and cost, there is a reliability issue when it comes to these legendary cars because these parts are wearing out and you don't know when they're gonna go. It's not uncommon to be at a car show and see somebody with one of these JDM legend cars where they start their car to leave and it won't start and they have to get towed home. I even had issues driving on the freeway. One time when I was driving my Supra, I had the stock radiator in it and the plastic end tanks on that radiator just failed and it left me stranded. So all these things you're gonna have to take into account if you want to use a JDM legend car as a daily driver. Another reason why I probably won't go back to JDM legend cars is that modern cars are just way more efficient. Now, if you're looking for that nostalgic feel when you go for a drive or the attaboys you're gonna get at a car show, yeah, JDM Legend car is great for that. But if you wanna be the most efficient and the fastest around a track or through the canyons, those JDM Legend cars are gonna have problems keeping up with the new technology that are in these modern day sports cars. Now, I'm gonna compare this GTR with my Supra just to kind of put things in perspective. Now, the Mark IV Supra is gonna start off at about 320 horsepower. Whereas this GTR is going to start off at 550 horsepower. Also, this car will do 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, which is just absolutely ridiculous for a dead stock car. By the time I sold my Mark IV Supra, it was at about 600 to 650 horsepower, but it took a lot of work to get there. To get that Supra up to that horsepower range, I had to swap out the twins for a single turbo. I had to swap out my entire fuel system, which included the fuel pumps, the injectors, the fuel rails, the lines, and the fuel pressure regulator. I had to do a full intake, full exhaust, and get a standalone fuel management system. That was a lot of work and a lot of money. Whereas when you take a look at the GTR, to get this one up to 650 horsepower, all I have to do is get intakes, exhaust, injectors, fuel pumps, and a reflashable ECU controller such as a Cobb access port or an EcoTech. So in that, this car is actually going to be cheaper in the long run, and it'll be faster than the Supra, which is one of the reasons why, for me, you know, JDM Legend cars just don't have as much of an appeal. And the final reason why I'll probably never own another 90s JDM Legend car is something that's actually beyond all of our control. It actually came down from the government. Most of you are aware, but for those of you who are not, the EPA has just passed new regulations and mandates restricting the manufacturer of performance car parts. That means that if you have a 320 horsepower car, it's gonna be very difficult to find parts to make it anything other than a 320 horsepower car. The government realized that they tried to regulate us, and well, let's be honest, that didn't work too well. So they're going after the people that actually make the parts for us. That means that if you buy a Supra and you wanna do a single turbo conversion, there's not gonna be any kits on the market. You have a BRZ and you wanna do something to your ECU, not gonna be any way to do it. That means that if you want to make your car fast, you're going to have to find parts third party, which means they're going to be used and who knows what condition they're going to be in. Also, the person selling you those parts is going to know that you want them and that they're no longer available, and they're going to charge a premium for them, which means it's going to be even more expensive to make those JDM Legend cars the awesome potential that they could get. And there we are. Those are my reasons why I will probably never own another 90s JDM Legend car again. Of course, as we all know, never say never, because you know what? I have been thinking about that FD and I do miss driving it. It was a great car. So we'll see what happens in the future. I hope you liked this video. If you did, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button to let me know. It does help the channel out a lot. If you want to see more car content, specifically GTR in the future, go and subscribe to my channel. You can now follow me on all forms of social media, which include Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and I'll leave links to those in the description down below. If you feel there's anything I've missed or you have some questions, go ahead and post in the comment section. I will respond to you. For those of you who didn't see last week's video, I did have a couple announcements. One is I have now started a JD Archer shop. So if you like some of the t-shirts that I wear when I'm making my video, they are for sale on my website, and you can find it at jdarcher.bigcartel.com, and there are more designs coming. I have also become an Amazon affiliate. So what I've done is I've gone back to all the videos I've did that were how-to videos, like how to do brakes, spark plugs, fix your air conditioning on either the Supra or the GTR. And if you go to the description, I have links to all the tools I've used and all the parts. That way, if that's a job that you need to do, you can make sure you have everything you need before you get started. I thank you all for watching, and until next time, forget everything else, focus on the finish line.